My name is Fabiola Santiago. I go by Oaxaca the Talk, or those are my handles. And I talk about motherhood, migration, mezcal. I consider myself a cultural critic, especially as it relates to what is happening to Oaxaca in this era of neocolonialism. First, a quick intro. So this is mainly for folks who want to consume long format videos. Porque pues sí, a veces es mejor tener como una plática. This is going to be a bilingual channel, primarily in English though. Maybe a little bit of Zapoteco from Santiago Matatlan, which is where I am from. Santiago Matatlan is the world capital of mezcal. And my family, my parents migrated. We migrated in the 80s. Well, my dad in the 80s with a lot of the men from the pueblo, because mezcal had no commercial value. Now there's a lot of inter-pueblo politics. There is a lot of Mexican national politics as well. And of course, US stuff that contributed to that wave of migration from my pueblo, from Oaxaca in particular. And we won't cover all of that today. I think over time that is the goal, that you start getting a picture. I'm recording this right now in March. Oh, it's like mid-month, and I want to talk about certain things as it relates to Women's History Month and some of the things that have been happening this month. So today in particular, the news about Dolores Huerta's abuse violations came out. So there's a lot of conversation online about that. And that's why I started doing this, is because I was like, oh my God, I want to say something too. And I just can't keep it succinct. I can't, not right now, because it's just a lot. So I want to talk about that from my lens, obviously. I did not grow up. I don't know too much about Cesar Chavez. I didn't read about him a lot. We know that, or if you are a product of the public school system, it's usually one of the last chapters that we cover in history or social studies, so we don't always spend too much time on those topics, unfortunately. I do recall Mr. Takagaki, man, if you went to uni, and you know, he was amazing. But he was a fan of Cesar Chavez, and we did cover him a little bit, but he also like encouraged us to do our own study. He was very big on understanding capitalism. Like, at the end of the day, I think a lot of us are products of our most influential teachers. Their belief systems were instilled in us. So, you know, I think that's their job, right? To teach us critical thinking and also influence us. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, especially if it's like to teach us critical thinking. So that was my experience. But I still, anyways, didn't read too much about Cesar Chavez. In undergrad and college, read a little bit about him, pero no tanto, not like a whole lot. I personally don't have this, like, I never held him up on a pedestal, idolized him, saw him like as this deep icon. Also, I personally do not have farm working family members that I know of. A lot of us who are from Oaxaca, from the pueblo that I am from, the community or el pueblo worked primarily in the hospitality industry and the service industry. It's also not to say that there aren't any Oaxaqueño farm workers. There's a lot of, right now, it's mostly indigenous, Latin American, Mexican farm workers, Central American in particular. I know that that's how it looks. When I read this, I wasn't too surprised and I wasn't shocked. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, my lifetime hero or somebody that I looked up to is now this person. Like, I had a warped idea about him. I do feel for Dolores Huerta, of course. Like, man, but like to carry that secret, to carry that dark story, that hurtful, harmful, violent story, without anybody witnessing it, without anybody hearing it until now, está pesado. I myself, like probably the majority of women, am a CSA survivor. And I remember when I was young and I was coming of age and realizing that what was happening to me was not okay, I felt a lot of shame, and I swore myself, I promised myself I would never tell anyone. And the thing is that I started seeking therapy in my early 20s, because I was having like depression, anxiety. I was starting to have a really unhealthy relationship to food. I worked in a restaurant, like I said, and I also worked in front of the house. And a lot of the folks that I work with were white women. And white women talk about their bodies in such a sad way. And at that young age, when we're still figuring out ourselves, I was very impressionable. And being the only brown girl, well, there was like another manager, but honestly, she was she was a power tripper. Oops, I hope she's not watching this. But she knows. You know, I think we would all just criticize our bodies. So anyways, body dysmorphia, unhealthy body, relationship to body, to food started coming up. So, but then like that's what led me to go to therapy. Okay, I'm back. This isn't the most flattering light. I'll eventually find something. My battery died, but I still want to continue with the conversation. I think I left off sharing that today we've had like a bomb drop. News for some of us, and for some folks, not news, they've known, which is that Cesar Chavez abused young people, young folk, as well as the secret children between him and Dolores Huerta. There's been a lot of stuff online that I've been seeing, that I've been reading, and I haven't been able to keep up with everything. Of course I haven't, who can? But I have been reflecting on my own and thinking about this situation. It didn't hit me in the same way that other people who really looked up to them and who were directly part of that movement are hit by the news. I'm also not quite surprised, because this happens so much. This is a symptom of patriarchal systems. And this is a symptom or an outcome of individualism, where we look to one person to save us, or to be the speaker or the voice for a whole community. Besides that, what was coming to mind is this word accountability. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because, well, I can talk a lot about that, but we're not going to go too deep, because I don't want to make these videos too long. So my belief system around accountability is that we cannot hold people accountable. This light is so unflattering. I was introduced to transformative justice work 15 years ago, before I moved to the Bay Area. It's one of the things that gravitated me to the Bay Area, was the kind of work that was being done around here. I've done some trainings around it. I was part of this group called the Bay Area Transformative Justice Collective. Ni modos, you guys are gonna see that streak. But then when I had my personal experience of harm, and this wasn't just like physical, sexual harm, because a lot of times I feel like that's maybe where it gets used. It was still harm. It was betrayal. I mean, I'll say it now. I was cheated on when I was pregnant, and I will definitely talk about that, because I think there's plenty to learn from that experience, and that I want to share with the intention of destigmatizing infidelity for folks who do, because anyways, there's layers. There are some layers to that, at least for me, because of the kind of community that I grew up in, where you just, women just have to stick through and be the glue of the family, whether they're loved or respected or not. And I said, not I. I will not do that. Anyways, more on that in the future. So I really wanted to hold this person accountable. I mean, my kid's father accountable, and my God, he was unwilling. And I was coming in with this you need to be accountable. You need to be held accountable to this. And for me, it was like, I want you to get rid of your phone, or like your phone number, your old phone number. We're both gonna delete social media. And I did. So Walk the Talk came after him. And a bunch of other things that for me were valid, because we're trying to rebuild trust. Also, I'm pregnant. Like, can we just focus on this bubble? Like, can you just be here with me and for me? And that was really hard for him. It was hard because it was giving up power. It was giving up a phone number. It was giving up social media. It was giving up access to his outlet. And so with accountability, when I hear folks say that we need to hold cops accountable or abusers accountable, we cannot do that. I firmly believe that we cannot do that, because accountability has to be a personal value and a personal principle. Instead of trying to force people to be accountable or to chase this accountability, there are other ways to build relationships or be in relationship with each other so that these kinds of things don't happen as much. And when or if they do, we are engaging with people, we are in relationship with people who do want to practice accountability. Now, it's not perfect. I mean, even after that experience, I've absolutely 100% have had encounters with friends, with people who then I unfriended or broke ties with, because I'm like, oh, you're not the type of person who's going to acknowledge harm, and therefore I don't want to be with you. For me, that was incredibly important. So over the years, my circle has become smaller and smaller and smaller. It's not to say that I don't have a community, acquaintances, colleagues, but in terms of friendship, real friendship, I don't call a lot of people my friends. Not on social media, not for optics, not because it's the default. No, because to me that's like I was gonna say sacred. And I feel like that's maybe too much. No, but they are. Friendships for me are sacred. Since we cannot hold people who do not value or have accountability as a value or a principle or a practice, then I think what we're left with is learning how to decipher and how to be in community with people who are going to be, and also pushing ourselves to be more accountable. I feel like this is turning more into accountability conversation than it was about like the other part that I was thinking about, which is there are so many men in different spaces, in movement spaces, in industries who have power. They have visibility, they're seen as a leader, they're seen as the voice, they have power, who also have abused and people and their power. Because power for me is like money, power for me is like anything. It's how people use their power. So it's an energy. Anyways, I think it's time to unfollow these people. I will not be naming any individual in particular, but I have to say there were a couple men that came up in my mind as I was like reading these things, or when I was seeing this thing, the news, hoping, I'm like, man, when are these dudes gonna get like caught? For these two, I have personally not been harmed by them, but I do have a friend and know of other women who were harmed by one of them. Now, here's the tricky part. For one of them, as far as I know, there hasn't been like SA per se, though you never know. But there has been deceit towards women, meaning that they have used women to get what they want. They use their charm, they use their whatever, all this stuff, right? To their looks to get women. And I think one of the things that really pissed me off about this person is that they led on a woman when she was going through a very difficult time in her life and just kind of abandoned her. And then likewise, I realized that I was being complicit when this person was bringing around one woman, but then like talking to other women. Anyways, it was messy. I am sensitive to that because even though it's not SA, it's still a type of emotional abuse, especially for the women who have, I don't know, like an emotional attachment or desire to have an emotional connection to this person. Here's the thing, like I let him know, because we were close for a little bit. And I think that's why I was like, no. You do not get to use our friendship, or just because I'm your homegirl doesn't mean like you. No. You can do whatever the you want with like other women. Absolutely not. So, anyways, I told him because I let him stay in my house one time, and I would think I was gone or I left or something, and like he brought somebody over without like asking me if it was okay. And yeah, and it was a bad ending to our friendship. He was pissed. Like I wrote him a long email. I'm that kind of person. And he was pissed. And I was like, yeah, I called him a colonizer because I'm like, this is colonizer behavior for you to come into my house without permission and like bring people. It's true though. It's absolutely true. There is no lie. That's why he probably got really upset. But anyways, and of course he's not a white dude. And then, yeah, this other person in the mezcal industry that I will not say much more about that, except that like I have heard from multiple folks about this person, and I'm just like, damn, man, like this sucks. But that's why, yeah, I just can't be going to these events, and I'm just like, I'm trying to, especially when it comes to alcohol. Nah, that's es otro rollo. Es otro rollo porque pues hay el alcohol. Y ahí it gets blurry, like literally and figuratively. So yeah, that happens. So be careful who you follow. It's time to unfollow some people. It's time to unfollow some men. So if you get anything from this video, go to your social media page, because obviously you have one because you're here. And just go to the folks that you follow and scroll and do a little bit of gut check. Be like, what do I know about this person? And if you don't know a lot and you just follow them, maybe it's a good time to unfollow. Why do I say unfollow? What is really the outcome of that? Well, those are the things that give people visibility. Those are the things that validate them. Those are the things that get like getting eyes, getting views, getting engagement on their pages does do something to their ego. Like it does build whatever form of power they have. But if you don't know how they use power and their relationship to power, that's when it gets tricky. Maybe next time we'll talk about power and like the different ways that we can use it, because we're all susceptible to using power in harmful ways. And sometimes we're aware of it and sometimes we're not. Nobody's perfect. Por eso, do not put me on a pedestal. Do not idolize me. Do not, superhumanize me. I'm just a regular person, and I just am grateful for whoever listens to this. Okay, hasta la próxima.